Sports Radio 92.9 The Game.
Peter King joining us right now. He is one of the best in the business. Been reading his stuff for a long time. Peter King joining us here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. Good to have you. How are you?
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I tell you what, it's not as hot today, Peter, as it's been. So,
that's what I heard. I heard Matt Ryan said he felt like he was, I talked to him at lunch. He said he felt like he's in the tropics, and he meant it in a good way. So, yeah, it seems like a really good day.
We try to use you as the barometer for the Falcons every year. One year you liked us for the Super Bowl. I think a more realistic 10-6. Did you foresee? I mean, no, we didn't. The 4-12 with all the injuries and how that manifested itself.
Nobody did. I mean, you don't have the kind of years that the Falcons have had the previous 5 years, and then expect that and you think that that's going to happen. But I think what they've done in the off season in addressing both lines, which was a desperate need. You still don't know if they've got the pass rush, but I don't know many people in the NFL are going to stop the run better than the Falcons will this year.
Peter King joining us here. It's Carl Dukes, Mike Bell, D&B on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. Peter, with the rule changes in the NFL, how does a team that's perceived soft, our Falcons, go to a team that wants to be more physical in the trenches when you can't hit as much as you used to be able to in these practices?
I'm not necessarily of the mind that that's a bad thing because I have seen so many over the years. This is my 30th year covering the NFL, and over the years I have seen so many guys get hurt in training camp because of overzealous practices, because teams go too far, because they hit too much. And again, I understand exactly what you're saying. You've got to find the happy medium between hitting too much and having two-a-days, and I understand that. But if everybody is on the same, restriction, if everybody has to have the same practice regimen, I just don't think it's a huge difference. And I'll just say this. Paul Soliai does not need to go hit 58 people a day to know that when he walks in on opening day against the New Orleans Saints, that he's got to find a way to cave in the middle of that offensive line. Same thing with Tyson Jackson. They know what they're going to do. Keep him fresh for the season.
It's Peter King, of course, from SI, Football Night in America, Sunday nights on NBC as well, as he joins us here on 92.9 The Game. You had it in the column last week about the Ray Rice situation where his wife goes to Commissioner Goodell. In your mind, does that justify the leniency of the suspension? Well,
like I said, I would have given him 4 games. The exact same, I don't think that what he did deserves more than 4, but I also think because of what the league has done over the last few years, every year at the Rookie Symposium, they spend hours with the players talking about how to treat women and don't touch women and all that stuff. Ray Rice touched a woman. And even though he was he's been borderline Eagle Scout and Maryland State spokesman for anti-bullying campaign and all that, he's done a lot of great things. I still think that they should have given him 4. But, again, I understand why they gave him 2 because he had a spotless record, and his wife said it's the first time it's happened, and I'm confident it's the last.
Peter King here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. Dukes and Bell talking some NFL with Peter, who's here at Falcons camp at Flowery Branch. What about the Jim Irsay situation, Peter, and how you think the NFL ultimately is going to handle owner Jim Irsay with the Colts situation?
I think they're going to take him away from the Indianapolis Colts for a period of time, my gut feeling. If somebody said, what do you think the sanction is going to be? I said, if I had to guess, and this is a wild guess, I think they give him 8 games away from the facility, half the season away from the facility, and a 7-figure fine. That's my feeling. I think that would hit him where it counts. But, again, I think that Roger Goodell is under pressure to do something significant to Jimmy Irsay because every player in the league is watching this. And every player is saying, hey, you're the tough sheriff when it comes to players. How are you going to be when it comes to the owners?
Hey, Peter, the Redskins today made some news. The general manager, Bruce Allen, says, and this story just won't die, they will not let the Shanahan thing go, that they should have had RG3 out there when they did last season to start.
Well, look, I remember, and I just saw Robert Griffin III, 3 days ago. And we were talking about the difference between this year and last year, and he didn't feel right during training camp last year. Not totally right. They weren't letting him practice. Look, they have to be so careful with RG3. I was surprised to see Bruce Allen say that because they had so much care in place with Robert Griffin III last year that I'm just surprised to hear him say that. And to me, if he felt that way, I don't know why he didn't stop it.
Peter King here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. What about our Falcons and the new coaching changes? What do you think of Mike Tice and Brian Cox? There's been a lot of talk about how they're going to amp things up and get these the O-linemen and the D-linemen working.
I think part of the reason, and I wasn't here yesterday, but I heard all about it today, the fights and the physicality at practice. In my opinion, it's just my opinion, when I look at this team right now, the one thing I say is this is a team that needed to get really a lot more physical. You guys know it. You saw it. They weren't physical enough. And if you've got a totally rebuilt, potentially defensive front, or mostly rebuilt defensive front, and you have a new, perhaps 60% new offensive line, at least 40%, mm-hmm. and I think you have to come in right away and you have to establish a tone that's different from the tone last year. I talked to Thomas Dimitroff the week after the regular season ended, and I never forget. Everybody was saying, you're taking a pass rusher, and he goes, you better watch the offensive line. We need to get tougher on the line, and we will. I remember he said this clear as day. We will run the ball in 2014.
Brings us to the next question. Is Peter King, the preeminent football writer in America, talking with us here on 92.9 The Game live from Falcons? You believe in Steven Jackson. I mean, a lot of our listeners don't think there's much left in the tank.
That's because you didn't see it last year. You just didn't see it. And again, look, I believe that the running back position has become the position in the NFL where people basically, can interchange the easiest. And I'm not saying that Steven Jackson isn't important. He is important. Mm-hmm. But I'm saying that, if they have to rely on a running back by committee with a bunch of guys, with Jaquiz Rogers leading the way, if they have to rely on a running back by committee, I mean, to me, I'm not that concerned about it. Yeah. If he gets hurt again and if he's not himself, they'll make do in the running game. It's a place where interchangeable parts, to me, rule the day in the NFL.
Peter, we saw the Broncos get beat down in the Super Bowl by the Seahawks, and now there are additional rule changes by the NFL. And, fans wonder. We get those phone calls, Peyton Manning gets beat again, and they change the rules. I don't know if it's because of Peyton Manning, but what do you think about the proposed rule changes and moving forward with, receivers and the less contact as far as receivers and DBs?
Look, I know at the end of last year there were a lot of teams and a lot of coaches who were upset with, especially, this doesn't get talked about nearly enough, with the rules being called in the 5-yard bump zone or beyond the 5-yard bump zone. There's too much grabbing, tugging, pulling. There's too much going on. Officials need to call that, not just if it's a slight, obviously if it's a bump, but you have guys grabbing jerseys. You have guys elbowing out of the way. I mean, it's like there's a whole league of Michael Irvins who have grown up, watching Michael Irvin play, and now Richard Sherman. Now, I will say this. When the officials went to Dallas a couple of weeks ago, and they saw a training tape of all of the plays that they need to watch out for and all the borderline dirty stuff that defensive backs were doing. They saw a big reel of plays. Not a single one was the Seattle Seahawks. And everybody points to the Seahawks as the leaders of the pack in that way. And Richard Sherman does slightly go over the line. But I think that it's universal. It's not one team. It's not just Seattle. I think it's universal. And I think the NFL is right to really to reinforce and make it a point of emphasis. Beyond the 5-yard bump zone, anything other than slight incidental contact, I think they're going to call this year.
Got a couple minutes left here with Peter King from Sports Illustrated live at Falcons camp on 92.9 The Game. Perception is Lovie Smith coming to Tampa, the moves they've made on offense. That's a team on the ascension. Did the Panthers do enough? Who do you like in this division this year?
I was at Carolina yesterday, and I'll tell you, everybody's talking about, Jericho Cotchery, Jason Avant, Tyquan Underwood. What are they doing? The injury now to Kelvin Benjamin. Hey, if I were Carolina, and I know they are, I'd be a lot more worried about their offensive line than I am about the receiving position. 4 guys today, just today, Travell Wharton announced his retirement, starting left guard last year. That means that one of the 5 best left tackles in football, Jordan Gross, he's gone. A very good left guard, Travell Wharton, is gone. And you're going to have Cam Newton coming off ankle surgery, and he doesn't even know who he's throwing the ball to. He'll be running around. Now, I think Cam Newton's going to have a very good year because he'll will himself to it. He'll use his feet if he has to. But I'm just saying, in my opinion, that team is in – I'd be very surprised if they go 12-4.
Well, with that said, what about the New Orleans Saints, who a lot of folks picked to win this division?
I like the Saints a lot.
Coming back with Drew
I like
Brees?
the Saints a lot.
Got enough offensive line to protect Brees?
Well, that will be iffy for them too. But again, let's look at the teams in this division, and especially if Greg Hardy gets suspended for some length of time in Carolina. And who knows? I think he's going to get suspended. I don't know how long. But my point is, who's Atlanta going to throw at Drew Brees to chase him around? And does Tampa have the kind of pass rush you need? Now, Carolina, they had 59 sacks last year. They're a good pass rushing team. But tell me how long Hardy's going to be out for, and then I'll tell you how good they're going to be rushing the passer.
Peter King, SI.com, of course, Monday morning quarterback, and you watch him on Football Night in America on NBC. He's one of the best, and we appreciate the time, Peter, today stopping by and hanging out with us.
Guys, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Peter King here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game.
Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. Get in the game on Twitter at 929 The Game.
On Facebook /929 The Game.
On YouTube /929 The Game.
On your phone, the free Audio Roadshow app.
The website 929thegame.com.
Watch the game. Watch 929thegame.com.
And listen at 929thegame.com.
Sports Radio 92.9 The Game.